Welcome into the Ravens Rundown, everybody. I am your host, Joey Petersen, and on today's show, we're going to outline two defensive coaching staff additions that the Baltimore Ravens made late last night. You know, maybe not a ton can happen with this roster given the cap space, but it looks like a lot has been happening, especially on the defensive side of the football when it comes to the coaching staff. We'll break down those hires, and then we'll talk a little bit about the future of this defense and what these last couple moves means for John Harbaugh, the future with this team, and possibly the 2025 Ravens defense. Before we get into any of that, you know what? Our Bengals breakdown host, Stone Shields, first off, it's a fake name. Second off, he bet me that we couldn't get 300 likes on today's video. Prove him wrong for me. Do me the simple favor. Hit the thumbs up button on today's video. Helps us out a ton, and also we get to prove our most hated host, rival, Stone Shields. Very wrong. Last night, Baltimore hires Kansas City safeties coach Donald D'Alessio to be, they didn't really announce like what he would be coaching here. They just said, breaking, Ravens hiring former Kansas City Chiefs safeties coach. I'm assuming he's going to stick with the safety position as well. And honestly, I love what a guy like D'Alessio did with Justin Reid, okay? He's a younger coach. I think that is really beneficial when it comes to connecting with younger players, right? He's a guy who hasn't been out of the game long, didn't play it past the collegiate level, but has had a couple of years in Kansas City, coaching up that secondary, helping coach up that defense, obviously resulting in a ton of success. And so I'm excited for what he can bring to this secondary, what he can bring to these safeties, for him to get a guy like Kyle Hamilton to work with or Darius Washington to work with, probably another addition in the draft to work with. And at the end of the day, I believe that he's a young and promising mind. A young, promising, developing, really solid potential defensive mind in this game, okay? You look at his path. You look at where he's been over the last 4 seasons with Kansas City. Started just as a defensive assistant, got to be the safeties coach this last year, so he's had a couple of promotions. But what I love is that he's gotten to coach under, he's gotten to learn from a guy like Steve Spagnuolo, who many people, myself included, think of as maybe the best defensive mind in our game today. Okay? And so he spent his first 4 years as a coach, the most developmental years as any young coach can have. He spent it with the best defensive mind in football, and now he's bringing that wealth of knowledge. Now he's bringing the last 4 years of that experience onto Baltimore. I'm so excited to see how it shakes out. Okay? Also, they weren't done there, right? Baltimore hires Matt Pease to be the assistant inside linebackers coach. He spent last year with the Chicago Bears as a defensive assistant, a defensive analyst, and if that last name sounds familiar to you, that's because it is. He is son of current defensive advisor Dean Pease, former defensive coordinator Dean Pease. So, father-son duo on the Baltimore Ravens coaching staff. I like that. I think that's a lot of fun. But I also think there's a lot of potential there, okay? I can't speak to a ton of what he was able to do in Chicago. I just know Chicago had a pretty solid defense this last year. And when you moved on from your inside linebackers coach earlier in January, around middle of January, right, you needed to fill in that gap. You needed to fill in that hole. I also think this is going to keep Dean Pease in that advisor role a little bit, I don't want to say longer or more constant, but like I think he was going to take a little bit of a step back this year, right? Not be in the building 24/7, not be in the building every day, kind of just be there if a guy like Zach Orr needs him. And I think the hiring of Matt Pease might change that, okay? And when Dean Pease was added onto the staff just a few weeks later, you saw the defensive turnaround, okay? So grade these two hires for me in the comment section down below. Give me an A, B, C, D, or F. Let me know your thoughts by getting in the comments. So what I love about this is I think it was obvious that things needed to change, okay? And I think that throughout this year, although you had the defensive turnaround late in the season, right, after about week 11, the Steelers game, in my opinion, is when things switched, when things flipped on the defensive side of the ball. But I love that Harbaugh saw this. I love that Eric DeCosta saw this. I love that Steve Bisciotti saw this. I love that all the guys that are in charge of running this franchise, that are pointing the ship, steering the ship for this franchise, saw that a change needed to happen, okay? I don't care if you turned it around late. Still, it got bad. Real bad, as in 32nd best pass defense in the National Football League. And so something needed to change. Something needed to happen. They made those changes, and they're going to continue making them along the offseason. Okay, coming up, what that means for this defense. I'm going to talk a little bit more about what that means coming up and what this means for guys like Kyle Hamilton, Marlon Humphrey for this defensive core. Before we do that, I got to tell you guys, if you want the best offseason coverage that money can buy for 100% free right here on YouTube, then you guys got to hit that subscribe button, okay? I always say it's super easy to cover this team in August, September, October, November, December, January. When it gets into the months like February, March, June, July, when there's not a lot going on, I'm still here. Every single day with a video, sometimes 2 videos a day. We go live every single week on Tuesday afternoons, Tuesday evenings. So for the best coverage you can find on the Baltimore Ravens right here on YouTube, you've got it. Hit that sub button, join us today. So there have been lots of changes, right? Before I talk about the defense, let's just look at these. Let's just highlight them, right? Out, Chris Hewitt. He was with this team since like 2008. And then in or out as well, Doug Mallory, former inside linebackers coach. In, Chuck Pagano, new defensive advisor, defensive assistant role. Donald D'Alessio and Matt Pease, both of the new hires last night. So Harbaugh, he recognized that a change was needed, okay? And I don't want to like just spread rumors and spread lies and say, you know what? He knows he has only 1 year left on his contract. He probably feels like he's on the hot seat. He probably thinks something's going to happen. I don't think that's the case. I just think he saw this secondary. He saw this defense. He's seen over the last few years the lack of turnovers that this defense has been able to generate in the most crucial situations in the postseason. He's seen that, you know what, that's not happening. Those aren't happening. He saw that this defense this last year in the beginning of the year was almost what led them down not winning the AFC North. Fortunately, things changed. They flipped the switch, but I think he's looking at that staff that was there last year and he's saying, you know what, I think we just need something new. Okay, and I love that there's new faces in the building. Okay, I really like Chris Hewitt. Obviously, John Harbaugh really liked Chris Hewitt. He'd been with this team forever. But I think at some point a change is needed. Some point you need fresh faces, fresh ideas, new, young ideas, new, young faces, okay? You just need something different. You need a change. And I think I love this because Zach Orr can thrive in that leadership role, okay? Zach Orr, I don't want to say he was handed a staff, but because he was promoted from within to defensive coordinator, he never got a chance to go pick his guys, okay? A lot of the guys that were on that staff were either Mike McDonald's guys, or they've been John Harbaugh's guys for a really long time. None of them are Orr's. And I think Orr had a lot to do with these hires. I think he got his say in a lot of these hires. And I think he got to be a part of the hiring process for these past 2 guys. And Chuck Pagano as well. That might have been more of a John Harbaugh hire, but still, I'm sure Zach Orr was talked to about it and he was kept in the loop. And so I just love that he can be in this leadership role because now these new guys coming in, they know who the voice is on this defense. They know who the face is on this defense. They know who this defense runs through, okay? And I think that's very beneficial for a young defensive coordinator and for a defense as a whole. If you love the Ravens, do me one favor and go ahead and like today's video. If you don't like today's video, I'm just going to assume you hate the Baltimore Ravens, then I'm going to ban you from the channel. So, like today's video. The defensive core, as I see it right now, is Roquan Smith, Nate Wiggins, Kyle Hamilton, Marlon Humphrey, okay? And I don't want to say a guy like Kyle Van Noy and Nnamdi Madubuike. I'd probably throw Madubuike in there. I wouldn't throw Van Noy. I think these are the 4 guys with Madubuike, the 5 guys that are young and that will take this team forward. Okay, that still have a lot of years left. Kyle Van Noy was an incredible addition to this team, but he's also getting older. He's not going to play for that many more years. Okay, these guys can be the core of this defense, can be the tight 5, tight 4 of this defense for a long time to come. And now, I think with these additions and what we've seen so far in this offseason and what we're looking forward to in free agency, the draft, and possibly some trade news, trade rumors, I think it's time to fortify the pass rush, okay? We've talked about this a lot, but we know that this is where this team has been lacking defensively when it comes to pressuring quarterbacks. They can get to the quarterback, they can sack the quarterback, but they have trouble generating constant and consistent pressure, okay? So I think those are the changes that need to be made. I'm really excited to see what Matt Pease is able to do in that inside linebacker spot. Really excited what Donald DeAlessio is going to be able to do in that secondary spot. But now I think that you feel like you have your defensive staff, your defensive group together when it comes to the leaders. Now you got to add to it, okay? And you got to fortify some things in that front four. Thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. Self-produced video, only lower thirds. Got to get it out as quick as I can for you guys. Appreciate the love. Make sure to like today's video.